dos olhos meus e a luz dos olhos teus resolvem se encontrar. Ai, que bom que isso é, meu Deus, que frio que me dá o encontro desse olhar. Mas se a luz dos olhos teus resiste aos olhos meus só pra me provocar, meu amor, juro por Deus, me sinto incendiar. Meu amor, juro por Deus que a luz dos olhos meus já não pode esperar. Quero a luz dos olhos meus na luz dos olhos teus sem mais lararará. Pela luz dos olhos teus eu acho meu amor e só se pode achar que a luz dos olhos meus precisa se casar.
The Run Part 1. Mary stopped completely in silence, hiding between the roots of an ancient tree, so she could breathe for a second before continuing. She was running without knowing for how long, but she thought it was a couple of hours. Her eyes were wet of her tears, and she wanted to scream, but she couldn't make any sound or move, or her capturers were going to find her. It was already bad enough to have the dogs scenting her fear and blood. At least, she thought, the rain was helping her to keep hidden and her tracks to be covered, what was in advance, and most important of all, she could see through the storms. Mary had this special gift that came with her from her Yoruba ancestors and helped her, and much more, to go through all that pain. She could see things that no one else could in the water. But not any water, in the drops of rain from the storms, even more vivid when it was lightning. Sometimes she could see images, or people moving and sometimes speaking through the wind. That day, she was seeing her path to freedom. She was following a golden shiny thin line that was floating between the trees, something like the movements of her hair in the water when she was diving in the river. That line was pointing her a way to go, she knew, because she believed. Her faith kept her moving forward no matter how hard it was, and the spirits never abandoned her. She closed her eyes and thought about Tilia, so young and full of life, she deserved so much better than what just happened. Tilia was only 5 when she arrived at the farm, very sweet and talkative. She was adorable, and even the foreman seemed to have some sort of affection for her, if you call it this way. That means pretty much to avoid punishing her when they see something off, and only do it when the order came from the main house. Tilia kept her child's joy as much as she could, like she knew even that young that it was going to help her through. Before that day, the only time Mary saw Tilia's shine disappear completely was when she was 11 years old, and her mother was sold. Mary remembers that day in each detail. Tilia was apathic, crying silently while she watched her mother being pulled by the carriage to be sold in the market with other 5 or 6 people. Mary had the memories of that day engraved in her heart because it resembled her the day her own mother died. Mary came from across the ocean in a ship with her mother and 3 older sisters. Mary was 6 years old when she was kidnapped. It was just a matter of days before arriving on land when a disease spread across the basement and people started dying in large numbers, and eventually, her whole family found their end. Only Mary survived, and from that day she wouldn't say a word if wasn't for Nana. She would probably die there too, if Nana didn't take care of her. Nana kept Mary around her all the time, so when they arrived, the vendors believed that they were mother and child and sold them together for one price. That's when they ended up at the farm she worked on for the past 30 years. And thanks to the grace of their ancestors, Nana was still strong and standing until nowadays. Mary forgot her own name because of her sadness, and nobody cared about asking anyway. Nana told her to choose one, and that it would be good to her to choose one that sounded more sympathetic to the foreman. Mary used the first name she learned on the farm, and it was good enough. Later in life, when she discovered the meaning of her name and felt satisfied about her choice, because she imagined herself honoring her mother. While she was there under the thunderstorm and having thoughts about the past, the foreman started to move in the opposite direction with the dogs, apparently confused about her track. So, Mary took her chance and started running again, following the golden line that only her magic eyes could see. Some moments, she thought there was a man leading her. Exactly where the line was starting, Mary could see a hunter holding a bow and ready to shoot, and when there was lightning close and he became more visible in the water, looked like the golden line was coming from the tip of his arrow. She believed that somehow, that hunter was going to take down any threat in her path. So, she kept running through the woods so fearless as she could be, trusting her steps without seeing the ground and praying for the ancestors to keep taking care of her and not to be captured. Now that she was alone, it was easier to run away, Mary thought, and immediately felt her heart heavy and the tears coming back to her eyes. Tilia. It was all about her, saving her from whatever the old pig was going to do with her, that Mary was running away from. And now Mary was alone in the dark, except for her brave hunter, trying to find freedom like she always dreamed about, but never actually planned. The old pig was old, and a pig, and the owner's uncle. He was so disgusting that even the white people think he is cruel. Once in a while, he would get young women between her people and took to his games, as he used to call. It was some sort of terrible evil that no one ever found out what it was, because those girls never went back to tell the story. They knew what he was capable of because every time he visits the farm, he gets one or another woman, sometimes young man, to his room, and whenever they come back, they aren't the same. They came back hurt, sometimes almost dead, and some indeed have died. It was hard for his victims to talk about it, and there was an unspoken rule not to ask them questions. The agreement between the older people in the quarters was to let them know what happened. They would be aware and able to assist others, but no one else was allowed to question. After all, it was the minimum they could do for each other, to respect their pain. Tilia had been working in the main house for the past 2 years and, as they believed, was safe from the old pig. But earlier that day, Tilia was working in the kitchen and was caught stealing food. She had someone to care for working in the crops, a boy of her age 17, and she stole some bread for him. He didn't ask her to do it and never would, but he was punished 2 days before and his wounds were infected even with the herbal treatment Nana was doing, that usually are enough to heal. So Tilia believed that more food would help him to recover faster and took the risk. But Tilia didn't think about the presence of the old pig that week, before doing it. The news arrived fast in the corn crops and Mary hoped that she wasn't going to be given to the old pig as a punishment, but also prayed that, if it happens, that she was only taken to his room and not to the games. At least Tilia would have a chance to survive, and Mary could take care of her after. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Tilia was indeed going to his cruelty entertainment. And Mary decided that, before anyone tried anything, she was going to take Tilia out of there. That's why Mary believed her gift was given to her, to escape. Her gift could allow her to not only see the invisible, but to sometimes to predict in the waters of the storm. So, she has been using it her whole life, to help her people to run away from the farm. No one in the main house ever found out, but she was the person responsible for organizing and strategizing all the escapes for the past 20 years, so she was one of the leaders there. And because she was always with Nana, one of the oldest in the quarter, she was passing unnoticed. Nana told her that in their tribes, it was common for women to be able to see and speak with the ancestors and could see the past, present and future, with the blessings of the Orishas. Nana couldn't do any predictions herself, but she had met a few women back home that used to do so. There was an old lady from her tribe that could see things through the mud waters of the mangroves, but unfortunately, she never predicted the white man coming for them. Mary was a natural talent, so she didn't need to be taught. But everything else she could learn from her home, she did. Nana told her how to work with the herbs and talk to the spirits, how to do their prayers and offerings. And she honored them by using her power to set people free. The sound of the dogs approaching woke her up from her thoughts. Mary looked around for a place to hide when she felt tickles on the top of her head and looked up to to see the hunter's hand touching her from the top of a branch. Mary started to climb the tree after him. She was hoping that her trail would be lost in the mud before any man came close enough. When she got a safe distance from the ground, she hugged the tree firmly and tried to find a comfortable position so she could rest. Mary was going to need all her strength that night. That meant doing everything she could to save her energy. She was very strong due to the years of service in the crops, but she was tired and hurt because of the injury to her arm. Once again, Tilia came to her mind, and she put it away to save herself from the pain. There was going to be time to mourn later, when she was safe in one of the communities in the mountains. Suddenly, she listened to a dog barking from the bottom of her tree, followed by more dogs and 3 foremen with guns.
Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Check out our website to read more tales. www.foresttales.com